My sister's fiancé used my identity to board a plane while I paid for their Dubai trip. I canceled everything and took legal action. I'm 32, male, and I work as a project manager for a commercial signage company in Fort Worth. I started as an installer, climbing scaffolding and mounting signs in the sweltering Texas summer heat, where temperatures soared to 105. The metal would literally burn your skin if you weren't wearing gloves. Through skill and hard work, I climbed the ranks. Now, I oversee contracts for projects ranging from local stadiums to corporate buildings. Just last quarter, I managed $1.30 million in projects, all delivered on time and under budget. My salary is around $85,000 a year, plus bonuses when projects go well. My parents faced tough times during COVID 4 years ago. My dad had worked in construction sales for decades, earning 6 figures by selling commercial-grade materials to developers across 3 states. Then, overnight, the industry froze. Mom hasn't held a steady job for years, always coming up with new excuses, back problems, a changing job market, and now her candle-making business that somehow costs more than it makes. When their landlord sold their rental house, they were on the verge of homelessness. They asked for my help just until they got back on their feet. I've always been practical with money. I still drive a 12-year-old Toyota 4Runner with 187,000 miles on it. It runs smoothly, is paid off, and built to last. Even though I could afford something newer, I had the foresight to buy a second property as an investment in 2018. It's nothing fancy. It's just a decent 2-bedroom condo in a safe area with good rental potential. I put down 20% to avoid PMI and locked in a solid 3.5%. 30-year fixed rate before interest rates skyrocketed. I agreed to let my parents move in at $800 a month, about a third of the market rate. The mortgage is $1,400 plus $320 in HOA fees, so I was actually losing money each month. I figured they'd be grateful, get back on their feet, and either start paying market rate or find their own place within a year. Fast forward 4 years, and that rent money has shown up roughly 60% of the time. My parents have shorted me about $15,000 in rent over this period. Megan, my 26-year-old sister, moving in 2 years ago, only made things worse. "We'll catch up next month" became their motto, right alongside, "Why are you being so difficult about this?" Megan is her own special category of entitlement. With a marketing degree, she only recently started becoming career-focused when the real world demanded actual work. She moved in with my parents about 2 years ago after her roommates got tired of covering her share of the rent. She dabbled in freelance social media consulting for about 3 months before landing an entry-level job at a local marketing agency. She constantly complains about being undervalued, despite having zero portfolio to show. She makes about $42,000, but spends like she's making $120,000. Anytime I brought up the missing rent, Mom would hit me with, "We're family, not some corporation. Why are you nickel and diming us?" Meanwhile, they never missed a payment on their new SUV or Megan's monthly spa treatments. Last year, I drove over unannounced on a Saturday and found them hosting a backyard barbecue with about 20 people. They'd installed a new 75-inch TV I hadn't seen before and had apparently just completed a kitchen remodel with granite countertops. When I asked about the rent money they owed me, Mom whispered, "Not now. We have guests," as if I were the rude one. The breaking point came when Dad finally retired in March. Unlike most construction guys, he managed to avoid major injuries, though his knees are shot from years of job site visits. He needs knee replacement surgery, but keeps postponing it for years. He'd expressed a desire to see Dubai, calling it the greatest construction achievement of our time. He had this coffee table book about Dubai skyscrapers that he'd flip through at least once a week, telling anyone who would listen about the engineering marvels. I decided to make it happen as a retirement gift, figuring it would finally earn some appreciation and maybe reset our relationship. I spent $28,000 on a 10-day trip to Dubai, including first-class Emirates flights from DFW, 4-star hotel near the Burj Khalifa, desert safari excursions, and more. I spent weeks researching the best time to go and even connected with my college buddy, James, who's been working for an engineering firm there for 3 years. He's living like a king in an expat compound, driving a tax-free Mercedes. Promised to show us the real Dubai, not just the tourist traps. The trip at dinner was supposed to be a peaceful family affair. But the initial shock and gratitude I felt lasted only about 5 minutes before Megan asked if Trevor could join us. Freaking Trevor. Trevor is my sister's fiancé. What happens when privilege meets delusion? Picture every LinkedIn cliché packed into one. 29-year-old with perfect teeth and a trust fund he pretends doesn't exist. He calls himself a serial entrepreneur and disruptive business strategist. But his actual business model consists of talking about business while others pay his bills. His LinkedIn profile reads like AI-generated corporate nonsense, filled with phrases about leveraging synergies but lacking any real revenue. The profile picture features him in front of a rented Tesla, pointing at nothing while sporting a Patagonia vest. Classic. His venture capital connections. A second cousin who works as an administrative assistant at a firm that once invested in a failed meal kit startup. He loves to name-drop tech companies as if he has insider knowledge, but it's all just stuff he read on TechCrunch that morning. Every conversation with him eventually morphs into a pitch for his latest venture, which is always vague enough that you can't tell what the business actually does. Last Thanksgiving, he cornered me for 40 minutes explaining his revolutionary class app idea. The entire concept was essentially Uber, but for dog walking, something that already exists in about 12 different forms. He has this uncanny ability to order the most expensive item on any menu while simultaneously reaching for his phone when the check arrives. Classic move. Oh, I need to respond to this email real quick, followed by a 15-minute bathroom break that conveniently coincides with the bill-paying time. Initially, I said no to Trevor joining us. I was maxing out my budget for 4 people. Megan immediately went full Karen on me, asking, "Why do you always have to ruin everything? It's not like I couldn't afford it with my fancy project manager job." She conveniently ignored the fact that her marketing specialist role paid her enough to afford a weekend trip to Austin, not a luxury Dubai vacation. My parents sided with her. My mom laid on the classic guilt trip, saying, "But we're family. And Trevor is going to be family soon. Don't you want your father to have everyone there for his retirement celebration?" Dad joined in, saying, "Son, it would mean a lot to have everyone there. Trevor's actually quite knowledgeable about international business." I looked Trevor dead in the eye and said, "If you want to come, you can pay your own way. Should be pocket change for someone with your business acumen." The way his face twitched told me everything I needed to know about his bank account. He mumbled something about liquidating some assets and transferring funds from offshore accounts, which I was pretty sure was code for asking his daddy for money. I thought the subject had dropped after a few days, but I should have known better. These people believe boundaries are just suggestions like speed limits or tax laws. I remember Trevor bragging about how a college buddy of his now worked TSA at DFW. He said, if I ever need a favor, he'd take care of it. Trevor smirked, and at the time, I thought he was full of it. Now, it all made sense, but I'm getting ahead of myself. 2 weeks before the trip, Trevor cornered me in my parents' kitchen while I was grabbing coffee. "So, I've been thinking about maximizing our Dubai opportunity," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Unhung," I replied, not caring at all while I poured myself a cup of coffee I'd brought over. "We need to book meetings with real estate developers while we're there. The UAE market is primed for disruption, and I've got concepts they'll want." To hear, I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. Seriously, all the big players are there. Emaar Properties, and Quill, DMAC. This could be the perfect chance to secure some seed funding for my next venture. I said, "Not in the budget." "Trevor, I was already covering the entire $28,000 for the family trip. I had even checked out these companies while planning the trip. The idea that they'd take a meeting with a random American with no portfolio credentials or actual business plan was laughable. But Trevor pressed on, saying, "This is a once-in-a-lifetime networking opportunity." He finally looked up from his phone. "I've been developing a concept for a revolutionary co-living space that combines WeWork with high-end residential." "So, an apartment building with desks?" I asked, and his eyes narrowed. "It's more nuanced than that. It's about creating synergistic living environments that foster the cross-pollination of ideas while maximizing square footage utility." Right? Still not in the budget. That evening, Megan confronted me again, calling me a jerk for not helping with Trevor's important business opportunity. According to her, I was sabotaging his career because I was jealous of his vision. I stood my ground. The trip was for Dad's retirement, not Trevor's imaginary business deals. Fast forward to departure day. I was finishing paperwork on a project when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "We've decided that Trevor is coming on the trip instead of you. He's more fun and will take better photos for social media." My father agreed he would be better company than I would be. I stared at my phone, feeling my stomach drop. Was this some kind of sick joke? I replied, asking what she meant. She responded, "I'm serious. Trevor is taking your seat, and you can always go on another trip sometime. We need Trevor there for his business connections anyway." I replied with one word: understood. Then I closed my office door and did what they least expected. I called Emirates directly to investigate what was happening. The agent confirmed that I was checked in for departure in 3 hours while I was sitting in my office, just 20 minutes away. After speaking with supervisors, I discovered that Megan had called Emirates a week earlier, claiming I had a medical emergency. She tried to get the ticket changed to Trevor's name, but Emirates doesn't allow easy name transfers. Instead, they plan to have Trevor use my boarding pass and somehow clear security. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was fraud. I called Emirates back and spoke to their fraud department. Since everything was booked under my name and credit card, I had leverage, while they couldn't stop passengers already checked in for today's flight. They could flag the return portion for security review. I then requested a full cancellation and refund of the return tickets. Citing fraud.next, I logged into Booking.com and canceled the hotel reservations. Then I methodically called each tour company and canceled every excursion. I called James in Dubai to explain the situation. They were about to board a flight to a country they'd never visited, thinking everything was paid for. But I had canceled it all. They had kicked me off my own trip to bring Trevor instead. That's cold, man. He paused. Also completely deserved. What are they going to do when they land? Figure it out, I guess. Dubai isn't exactly budget-friendly for unprepared tourists. A decent meal at a mid-range restaurant would run $50 to $75 per person. A taxi from the airport to the city center would cost around $50. Their emergency fund would evaporate within 48 hours. Then, I called my bank and reported my credit card as compromised. I had a new one issued with a different number and froze my other accounts temporarily, just in case anyone had my account details. I wasn't taking any chances. These people had proven they felt entitled to my money. My best friend Matt, always, saw through their nonsense and warned me, but I didn't think much about it. So, I texted him. "Remember that conversation about consequences? It's happening now." He came over that night with drinks and his buddy Ryan, who works as a locksmith. By 10 p.m., every lock in my rental property had been changed, new security cameras installed, and a keypad lock mounted by the front door. I contacted a property management company I'd worked with before and had them draw up a formal lease agreement. At full market rate, $2,850 per month, utilities not included, with first and last month's rent due immediately upon signing. Finally, I called my real estate attorney. I'd used him before for property matters. and he quickly drew up an official eviction notice, giving them 30 days to either sign the new lease or vacate the premises. That wasn't all. While my attorney was drawing up the eviction paperwork, I explained how Trevor had used my personal information to board the flight. He had essentially committed identity theft. My attorney, who also handled criminal cases, immediately saw the opportunity. "We need to document this fully," he said. "This isn't just a family dispute anymore. It's potentially criminal fraud." I filed a police report the next morning, bringing copies of my text messages, screenshots of the original booking confirmation, and the flight records showing someone had used my ticket. The officer taking the report looked impressed by my documentation. "Most identity theft cases don't have this level of evidence," he said. "Usually, it's just a mysterious charge on someone's credit card, not a fully documented case with admissions and text messages." I also called Emirates back and asked to speak to their fraud department. The representative was professionally horrified. When I explained what happened, "This is a serious security breach," she said. "Someone using another person's boarding pass and identification is something we track very closely." She flagged the incident for internal review and assured me they would be investigating. And remember Trevor's TSA buddy. It seems like the guy helped him bypass the ID check. Emirates didn't catch the mismatch until the return leg, which triggered a security review. My attorney sent a formal cease and desist letter regarding the identity theft and helped me file charges for identity fraud and misuse of personal information. Their Emirates flight landed in Dubai around 7 p.m. local time. I can only imagine the excitement as they deplaned all smiles and Instagram stories, ready for their luxury vacation, except there was no hotel shuttle waiting, no reservation, no return flights. Matt came over to my place that night with pizza and drinks. We also spent some time setting up a security system. I created a detailed spreadsheet to track every penny my family borrowed or took from me over the years, complete with dates, amounts, and any promises for repayment. The first panicked call hit my phone around 9 p.m. my time. I didn't answer. Then came another call, and another. My phone started blowing up with text messages, which Matt and I read out loud between bites of pizza. "Megan, what the heck did you do?" "Trevor, this is completely unprofessional and potentially illegal. My attorney will be contacting you." "Mom, please call us back. We don't know what to do." I replied with a single text. "Enjoy Dubai with Trevor. I hear he's more fun than I am." Then I turned off my phone and enjoyed the first peaceful night I'd had in months. Matt couldn't stop laughing. "Dude, Trevor's attorney." "What?" "Attorney represents people who can't afford their own plane tickets." I replied, reaching for another slice of pizza. "The same one who handles all his billion-dollar deals." 2 days later, I turned my phone back on. The messages were getting more interesting. "Dad, we had to call Trevor's father to wire emergency money. You've embarrassed me in front of my new family member, Megan. Trevor fell off a camel during the desert tour we had to book last minute. He broke his arm and can't take photos of anything now. Mom's so upset. This is all your fault. Screw you. Amazing how my fault extends to a pissed-off camel." From their messages, I pieced together a pretty clear picture of their adventure. They were stranded at the airport with no hotel reservation, no transportation, and rapidly dwindling funds. They had to call Trevor's parents to wire emergency cash. That must have been a fun conversation. "Hey, Dad, we need $5,000 wired immediately, or we'll be sleeping in the airport." They spent 3 nights in a budget hotel by the airport, which apparently had cockroaches the size of mice. On my research, they probably paid about $400 per night for this privilege. Dubai's version of a budget hotel is still priced for oil barons compared to American standards. The kicker was Trevor having to sell his vintage Rolex, definitely a knockoff, to cover some expenses. From what I gathered through their texts, he got about $500 for a watch he claimed was worth $12,000. Tragic, so they landed back in Texas. 5 days after they left, having spent most of the trip panicking, broke. and apparently being chased by stray dogs near their budget hotel, according to Megan's angry texts. They spent much of their time arguing in the hotel room, with Trevor blaming her for the vacation from hell and my parents questioning their future son-in-law's business acumen. My favorite part, though, was that they apparently tried to visit the Burj Khalifa but couldn't afford the observation deck tickets. So, the centerpiece of Dad's dream trip was something they only saw from the ground. Sucks to suck. When they pulled up to my place in an Uber, I was standing in the driveway with Matt. We were casually drinking coffees, looking like we'd been having the time of our lives while they were suffering in Dubai. I had positioned both our cars in the driveway, my 4Runner and his Tacoma, so they couldn't pull in. What the actual heck was that? Okay, my dad shouted as he got out of the car, his face lobster red from either the desert sun or rage. I took a slow sip of my coffee. That was what consequences looked like. You stranded us in a foreign country. My mother screamed. We could have died. Yet here you are, I observed. Alive and well, minus one functional arm. I see. I nodded toward Trevor, whose arm was in a makeshift sling. Trevor stepped forward, wincing. You realize what you've done is actionable, right? I have contacts at 3 major law firms who would take this case pro bono. Matt snorted. Damn, that must be convenient. Do these law firms also provide medical care for camel-related injuries? 'Cause that sling looks like it was made by a toddler with a dish towel. You have no idea what we've been through, Dad growled. Trevor broke his arm when the camel threw him. The hotel they put us in had no working air conditioning. Megan got food poisoning from a street vendor. We had to sleep in the airport. One night because our credit cards wouldn't work, my mother added. And the embassy was absolutely no help at all. This last part didn't surprise me at all. What did they expect the embassy to do? Hello, American Embassy. My son paid for a luxury vacation and then canceled it when we uninvited him. Please send the Marines. Don't forget the camel incident, I said, unable to hide my smirk. I heard that was particularly traumatic. Trevor's face turned an even deeper shade of red. That camel was clearly not trained properly. I specifically told the guide I was an experienced rider. Oh, I'm sure you did, Matt muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Right after you told him about your Fortune 500 connections and cryptocurrency portfolio. I was almost in tears when we had to call Trevor's dad for money. Do you know how humiliating that was? Almost as humiliating as uninviting someone from a trip they had already paid for, I suggested. You never answered our calls. Mom nearly screamed in frustration. We didn't know what to do. Well, you figured it out, didn't you? From what I hear, Dubai has one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Plus, you had Trevor, the international business expert. I figured you were in capable hands. That's when I reached into my back pocket and pulled out the lease agreement and eviction. Notice, since we're having a heart-to-heart, let me set some things clear. Here are the new terms for the condo. $2,850 per month, utilities not included, and the first and last month's rent due immediately. You have 30 days to either sign this new lease or vacate the premises. They stared at the papers like I had handed them a death sentence. This is illegal, Trevor started. You can't just, it's completely legal. I cut him off. You were never on any lease. My parents have been month-to-month tenants, paying well below market rate, and I've decided to change the terms. It's all laid out in black and white. Why? We don't have that kind of money right now, Mom protested. Not my problem, I replied. I'm sure Trevor's parents can help you out again, like they did in Dubai. My father stepped forward, his voice suddenly soft. Son, this is extreme. We're talking about your family here. No, this isn't about family. It's about business, and that's what I'm doing now. As they turned to leave, I added one final point. Oh, and the locks have been changed. Your new keys will be provided after you sign the lease and pay the first and last month's rent. You can access your belongings by contacting the property management company listed on page 3. They didn't sign the new lease. They also didn't leave. The 30 days came and went with them, ignoring my property manager's calls and emails. They thought they could wait me out, that I'd eventually soften and let them go back to the way things were. They were wrong. I filed for eviction exactly 1 day after the deadline passed. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. During that time, they alternated between ignoring me completely and sending manipulative messages. Mom, I raised you better than this. Dad, no son of mine would treat family this way. Megan, I hope you're happy destroying our lives for your petty revenge. Each message just reinforced that I had made the right decision. Not once did they acknowledge their role in creating this situation. Not once did they offer to make amends or take responsibility. It was always about what I was doing to them, never about what they had done to me. While the eviction process was playing out, I wasn't just sitting idle. The identity theft angle was moving forward too. The police report I'd filed got assigned to a detective who specialized in fraud cases. He called me for a follow-up interview and seemed genuinely interested when I handed over the texts, screenshots, and flight records showing how Trevor had used my identity to board the flight. This is pretty clear-cut, the detective said. Most identity theft cases are harder to prove, but they basically admitted to it in writing. Yeah, they weren't exactly geniuses. The Emirates Fraud Department also completed their review. An airline representative called to inform me they'd flagged Trevor's passport in their system and confirmed my original suspicion. He had used my boarding pass and identifying information to get through security and board the flight. My attorney was methodical about the whole process. He filed the identity theft and fraud charges separately from the eviction proceedings, explaining that mixing them would only complicate both cases. Let the criminal justice system handle the identity fraud while we focus on getting your property back, he advised. The courts don't like when people try to combine civil and criminal matters. I used those 2 weeks productively, meeting with my financial advisor to adjust my investment strategy now that I wasn't subsidizing 3 adults. I started talking to a real estate agent about potential properties in up-and-coming neighborhoods, and even reactivated my dating profile after a 2-year hiatus. The judge at the eviction hearing was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, who had clearly seen every sob story in the book. My attorney presented the case: tenants refusing to sign a new lease or vacate, a history of irregular payments, and the property owner's right to adjust terms. Their defense consisted mainly of, but we're family, and we've lived there for years, neither of which impressed the judge. Dad tried bringing up his knee problems in retirement, but the judge cut him off with a raised hand. Sir, medical conditions, while unfortunate, do not create tenancy rights, she said, peering over her glasses. Trevor tried to argue that as Megan's fiancé, he had some kind of right to be involved. The judge shut him down so quickly. I almost felt sorry for the guy. Unless your name is on a lease or you've established residency for the legally required period, you have no standing in these proceedings, she said, her voice sharp with irritation. The ruling came down in my favor. They had 5 days to vacate the premises. As we left the courthouse, my mother grabbed my arm. You can't do this to us. Where are we supposed to go in 5 days? Maybe ask Trevor? I suggested. He's practically family now, right? Trevor stepped forward, shaking his head. My parents aren't going to house your family. That's your responsibility. I laughed. Funny how your entrepreneurial spirit doesn't extend to solving actual problems. What happened to all those UAE investors you were going to impress? That meeting would have happened if you hadn't sabotaged the trip. He shot back. Right. I'm sure the chicks were lined up to throw money at you. What exactly is your business? Again, I've known you for over 2 years, and I still have no idea what you actually do. What Trevor didn't know was that his identity theft problems were just beginning. 2 days after the eviction hearing, he and Megan were served with papers for the fraud case. The look on his face when he realized this wasn't going away was priceless. like watching someone who'd never faced consequences suddenly understand that actions have repercussions. They spent those 5 days alternating between begging, threatening, and guilt-tripping. None of it worked. On day 5, they finally moved out my parents to my aunt's house, and Trevor and Megan apparently to his parents' place, despite his earlier protests. When they left, they took everything that wasn't bolted down, including appliances that were part of the property: the dishwasher, microwave, washer, and dryer. They also deliberately damaged several walls, broke a bathroom mirror, and left all their trash. My property manager documented everything, and I filed a complaint for property damage. My attorney suggested I could take it to small claims court for the stolen appliances, but I decided to just track it and keep receipts. The replacement and repair costs came to about $4,200, which I added to the spreadsheet tracking their debt to me. Not that I expected to ever see a penny of it, but it felt important to keep the record straight. Megan texted me too. "Hey, I know we had our issues, but maybe we can grab coffee and talk this out. I'm willing to forgive everything if you help us with the first month's rent somewhere else." I didn't respond. A day later, she texted again. "Fine, hope you enjoy. Being alone forever? Screw you." 2 days later, I got a text from my father. "Your mother and I have decided that until you apologize and make this right, you are no longer our son. We didn't raise you to be this heartless." I replied, "Understood. Best of luck with everything." My mother started calling everyone in the extended family, telling them how I had abandoned them when they needed me most, conveniently leaving out the years of financial support and the Dubai fiasco. My father began sending increasingly threatening texts. The last one included some pretty explicit threats about how I'd regret this decision for the rest of my life. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I forwarded the message to my attorney, who sent a cease and desist letter. When that didn't stop the messages, I filed for a restraining order. The restraining order was granted after I presented the judge with over 30 threatening messages. The court bailiff who served them the papers reported back that my father had gone on a tirade about ungrateful children and family loyalty. Meanwhile, the identity theft case was working its way through the system. They didn't end up in jail, but both Megan and Trevor were hit with misdemeanor charges and fines. It wasn't enough to land them behind bars, but it was enough to give them both criminal records. The DA wasn't interested in pursuing felony charges since it was considered a family matter, but he wasn't about to let them walk either. They were offered a plea deal, misdemeanor charges in exchange for full cooperation and restitution. The DA said it wasn't worth wasting resources on a full-blown felony trial given the family context. The airline security report sealed the deal. Emirates takes passenger identification very seriously, and their documentation of Trevor using my boarding pass was damning. The TSA agent who processed Trevor's boarding was also investigated. It turned out he was a friend of Trevor's from college, who helped him bypass normal security protocols. He lost his job, and Emirates implemented stricter ID verification procedures as a result of the incident. Trevor got off with a misdemeanor because he claimed he was just using the boarding pass I gave him, and the TSA agent, his friend, corroborated this lie. The agent took most of the heat for bypassing proper verification procedures. Trevor ended up with a $5,000 fine and 200 hours of community service, while Megan received a slightly lighter sentence, $2,500 and 100 hours. Trevor was the one who actually boarded the plane. The district attorney stated that the texts alone weren't strong enough to prove that Megan knew about the plan. Trevor intended to impersonate me, while she denied any involvement, ultimately leaving Trevor to take the fall. Both of them were placed on probation for a year. Their criminal records had immediate repercussions. Megan lost a job offer at a marketing firm when it came up during her background check. She tried to explain it as a misunderstanding, but fraud convictions are hardly minor issues for companies that handle financial information. Trevor's fake consulting business suffered even more. Word spread about his criminal record. And suddenly, those Fortune 500 connections he always bragged about went silent. It turns out that legitimate businesses aren't eager to work with someone convicted of fraud. Who would have guessed? It has been a year since the Dubai disaster. I haven't heard from my immediate family since the restraining order was served. The silence has been surprisingly peaceful. I kept the condo, found reliable tenants who actually pay their full rent on time, and have been using the extra income to fund my hobbies and investments instead of subsidizing adult dependence. I even used some of this newfound financial freedom to take a real vacation 2 weeks in Costa Rica, surfing and hiking. I didn't post a single photo on social media. I just enjoyed it for what it was. My cousin Laura dropped by a few times throughout the year, keeping me updated on the family drama. My parents had moved from my aunt's house to another relative's, then another, burning bridges at each stop. They took out loans from various family members, promising to pay them back as soon as their situation stabilized. None of those loans were ever repaid. Most of the extended family cut ties with them after realizing they were being used as temporary ATMs, a role I knew all too well. Trevor bailed on Megan about 2 months after the eviction, moving on to date the daughter of a local restaurant owner. Megan wasn't doing well. She wasted a bunch of money on an online business scheme that turned out to be a scam, likely inspired by Trevor's entrepreneurial spirit. She started drinking heavily and was living with roommates who were about to kick her out for not paying. Her share of the utilities, my father's knee problems, worsened to the point where he needed surgery. But Medicare would only cover part of it. My mother worked part-time at a craft store, but continued dumping money into her failed candle business. She even set up a GoFundMe for my dad's surgery that raised a whopping $340 in 3 months. One night, after a few sodas, I checked it out and donated exactly $1 just so they would see my name on the donor list. According to Laura, my name had become synonymous with betrayal in family conversations. They had rewritten history completely. Now I was the villain who had abandoned them without warning after years of them helping me build my career. I had moved on with my life. I got promoted at work to senior project manager, overseeing all commercial projects over $750,000. I started dating a civil engineer named Kristen, who doesn't believe that family is a blank check to be cashed at. I expanded my investment portfolio and even started mentoring a couple of younger guys at work on financial literacy. Finally, they tried to reach out again. Mom sent me a message from a new number, asking if we could meet. Of course, I agreed. I wanted to see it with my own eyes and witness how badly they had screwed up. They came over, knocking on my door. My parents and Megan stood on the porch, looking like they had aged a decade in a year. "Thank you for seeing us," my father began. I nodded, but said nothing. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," my mother continued. "About everything that happened, about Dubai, and about how we treated you." Megan was crying silently, having watched Trevor bail the second things got tough. "You were right about him all along. What do you want?" I asked, cutting to the chase. "I've developed a pretty reliable detector over the past year." They exchanged glances. "We want to reconcile," my mother said. "To be a family. Again. We need a place to stay," my father admitted. "Just until we get back on our feet." Same phrase, different day. Part of me wondered if they even realized they were using the exact same line they had used 4 years ago, when this whole mess began. "You disowned me. We're not family anymore, remember?" My mother reached for my hand. I moved it away. "Please," she whispered. "We were hurt and angry. We didn't mean it." "No," I replied. "You meant it at the time. You meant it when you thought other people would keep supporting you. You meant it until you ran out of relatives to leech off of." My father looked genuinely confused, as if he couldn't comprehend why his apology script wasn't working. In his mind, saying sorry was always enough to reset everything. Some damage can't be undone with words. "I'm not your backup plan," I continued. "And I'm certainly not going to let you move back into my property after the harm you caused." Megan's expression hardened. This is still about your stupid trip, isn't it? We've both paid for that. I lost my career because of the charges you filed. I looked her straight in the eye. You lost your career because you committed identity theft. Now you know what it's like when doors close because of things on your record. After several minutes of back and forth, they lost hope. As they were leaving, I stopped them. I handed my father an envelope. Inside was $3,000. This is for your surgery, I said flatly. They stared at the envelope, then back at me, a glimmer of hope in their eyes. This isn't reconciliation, I continued. This is closing our accounts. Night. I won't have your health problems on my conscience, nothing more. My father's hand trembled as he accepted the envelope. Thank you, son, he muttered. Don't call me that, I replied, opening the door for them. I watched as they walked to their car, heads down. On the drive home, they'd probably convince themselves this was the first step toward getting back into my life. They'd be wrong. I'm still waiting on that call from Trevor's lawyer.